Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do in a difficult situation is to keep our mouths shut. In a world where everyone is constantly sharing their opinions, spewing their frustrations, and engaging in conflicts, the art of silence can be one of the most profound skills we can develop. We live in a time where it's easy to react impulsively, to let our emotions spill out without thinking, but how often do we take a step back and realize that in many situations, the best response is no response at all? Silence is powerful. Often we underestimate the impact of saying nothing, yet silence has the ability to carry more weight than words. In a world where everyone feels the need to voice their opinions, to offer advice, or to engage in heated debates, silence stands out as a remarkable force. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of conversation, to feel the pressure to speak your mind, to justify yourself, or to argue your point. But in many instances, silence can communicate more than words ever could. When you choose to zip your mouth in a tense situation, you show that you are in control, not just of the conversation, but of your emotions as well. In moments of conflict, saying nothing gives you the space to observe, to listen, and to truly understand the situation at hand. Words can often cloud the issue, muddy the waters, or fuel further animosity. Silence, on the other hand, creates a pause, a break from the noise that allows for clarity to emerge. It provides an opportunity to gather your thoughts and to decide whether speaking would contribute anything of value, or if it might only serve to escalate matters. By choosing silence, you also signal that you are not desperate for validation or attention. You are not trying to prove anything. Instead, you're showing strength in restraint. Silence allows you to rise above petty arguments and distractions, elevating your response from one of reaction to one of reason. It allows you to walk away from situations with your dignity intact, without the mess of unnecessary words. Furthermore, silence often forces others to reflect. When you stop talking, others are left to either fill the gap with their own words, or to consider your silence as a statement in itself. It challenges them to look deeper into the issue, to evaluate their own actions and reactions, and to think before they speak. In a world that thrives on constant communication, silence becomes a profound and powerful tool, one that commands respect and attention. In this sense, silence is not merely the absence of sound, it's a presence in and of itself, a space that carries meaning, intention, and impact. When you master the power of silence, you don't just avoid conflict or prevent regret, you elevate your presence, making your actions and words, when you choose to speak, all the more significant. When you zip your mouth, you're not just choosing to withhold your own thoughts, you're choosing to actively listen to others. Listening is one of the most powerful tools we can use to understand, connect, and grow in our relationships, both personal and professional. Yet, it's an often overlooked skill in a world where people are more eager to talk than to listen. Listening goes beyond hearing words. It's about being present, engaging with the person speaking, and truly understanding their perspective. In fact, many conflicts and misunderstandings arise simply because people don't listen to each other properly. When we're too busy preparing our next statement or rebuttal in our minds, we stop paying attention to what the other person is actually trying to communicate. This not only affects the quality of our relationships, but also limits our ability to resolve issues or find common ground. By choosing to zip your mouth, you give the person speaking the space to express themselves fully. You show respect for their opinion, even if you don't agree with it. This active listening creates an environment of trust and empathy. People feel heard when you listen, and this in turn encourages them to be more open with you. Listening deeply and attentively also gives you the opportunity to absorb information that you might not have considered, giving you a broader perspective on any issue. Moreover, listening helps you understand the nuances of a conversation. Often what's said is only a small part of the bigger picture. The tone of someone's voice, their body language, and the emotions they express all contribute to the message they're trying to convey. When you're talking, you can't pick up on these subtleties, But when you zip your mouth and focus on listening, you open yourself to a deeper level of communication. This not only helps resolve conflicts, but also builds stronger, more meaningful relationships. True listening also allows you to process information before responding. In many situations we react quickly, sometimes out of habit or defensiveness, and this can lead to miscommunication or even escalating the situation. But when you take the time to listen first, you give yourself the opportunity to think critically about your response. This thoughtful response can be far more constructive and can foster an environment where dialogue is encouraged rather than argument. Additionally, when you listen instead of speak, you model good communication for others. People are often drawn to those who listen attentively because it shows that they are valued. This simple act of listening can strengthen your influence and improve your relationships in both your personal and professional life. When you choose to zip your mouth, you allow yourself the opportunity to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Often our initial reactions come from a place of emotion, anger, frustration, or even excitement. In those moments it can be tempting to say whatever comes to mind, to speak quickly, without giving much thought to the consequences of those words. However, impulsive responses often lead to regret. Words said in the heat of the moment can be hurtful, misinterpreted, or even damaging to relationships. When we don't take the time to pause and think, we risk allowing our emotions to dictate our words, rather than our reason. Zipping your mouth provides the space you need to gather your thoughts and emotions before speaking. Instead of impulsively reacting, you take a moment to consider the situation more clearly. This pause allows you to separate your immediate feelings from the situation at hand, giving you time to think about the best way to respond. It gives you the clarity to respond with intention, choosing words that are more measured and constructive, rather than reactive. This process of thinking before responding also gives you the chance to reflect on your priorities. Sometimes in heated situations, we can get so caught up in being right that we forget what really matters, preserving the relationship, finding common ground, or resolving the conflict peacefully. By pausing before you respond, you ensure that your response serves a greater purpose than just winning an argument. It allows you to approach the situation from a place of thoughtfulness, empathy, and long-term resolution, rather than from a place of immediate emotional reaction. Furthermore, pausing to think before speaking can enhance your credibility and authority. When you take the time to respond thoughtfully, people are more likely to see you as calm, composed, and confident. It shows that you are in control of yourself and that you are capable of handling challenging situations with grace. People are often drawn to individuals who can remain level-headed in difficult moments, and this quality can significantly strengthen your relationships, both personally and professionally. There's an undeniable strength in silence, and sometimes silence can serve as the most powerful response in a conversation. The act of zipping your mouth, particularly when tensions are high, doesn't mean you lack the ability to speak your mind. It means you are choosing to take control of the situation. Silence creates an opportunity for reflection, not just for you but for those around you as well. It provides the space for both parties to step back from the intensity of the moment and gain perspective. In an argument, when emotions are running high, people often say things they don't truly mean. In such moments, silence allows both individuals to cool down, preventing the conversation from spiraling into something more hurtful. Instead of immediately retaliating with your own words, you allow the situation to unfold without adding fuel to the fire. This can often diffuse tension and make it easier for a productive conversation to take place later. Moreover, silence also gives you the power of control. Many people are uncomfortable with silence in conversations. The silence between words can create a sense of unease, pushing the other person to fill the gap. This can work to your advantage. When you remain quiet, the other person may be forced to rethink their position or to offer a more thoughtful response themselves. Silence, therefore, isn't passive. It's an active form of communication. It can subtly guide the conversation and create a space where both parties can consider their next move carefully. In some cases, silence can even speak louder than words. It can serve as a reminder that not everything needs to be said, or that sometimes the best way to express your feelings is through non-verbal means. Whether it's through your body language, your actions, or your expressions, silence communicates a depth of emotion and understanding that words often fall short of capturing. By choosing silence in moments when words could escalate conflict, you are showing your maturity, your ability to remain composed, and your commitment to finding resolution. Knowing when not to speak is just as important as knowing what to say. There are many situations where your input isn't necessary, and where silence is the wisest choice. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we always need to add our thoughts to every conversation or debate. But in reality, not every issue requires your intervention. Sometimes the best thing you can do is allow others to express themselves without feeling the need to counter every statement or add your own opinion. Zipping your mouth in such instances allows the conversation to flow more naturally and gives others the space to be heard. It shows that you value the opinions of others and that you respect their right to share their thoughts without interrupting or dominating the conversation. This act of restraint can lead to more harmonious interactions where each party feels equally respected and valued. In professional settings, this can be particularly valuable. There are many instances in meetings or collaborative discussions where it's better to listen and absorb what others are saying rather than jumping in immediately. By staying quiet and paying attention, you gain valuable insights that you might miss if you were constantly speaking. Furthermore, recognizing when it's not your battle to fight is an important aspect of knowing when to zip your mouth. There will always be moments when others are dealing with their own issues, and it's not your place to insert yourself into the situation. Whether it's a personal disagreement between two friends or a conflict in the workplace, there are times when your silence is the most respectful approach. By withholding your opinion or interference, you allow others to work through their problems on their own. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you respect their ability to handle the situation. You also show maturity by recognizing when to step back and allow others to take charge of their own lives. In these situations, your silence can be a sign of wisdom and discernment. It shows that you understand boundaries, both for yourself and for others. Instead of unnecessarily inserting yourself into situations that don't require your involvement, you demonstrate the maturity to know when to simply listen, observe, and give others the freedom to resolve their issues without your influence. This not only strengthens your relationships, but also fosters a sense of trust and respect in the long run. Silence is incredibly powerful, yet often underappreciated in a world that celebrates constant noise and activity. Choosing to zip your mouth in moments of tension or conflict doesn't mean you lack a voice or an opinion, rather it demonstrates your ability to harness the strength that comes with quiet. In many cases, silence can convey more than words ever could. Words are fleeting. They can be misinterpreted, forgotten, or dismissed, but silence demands attention. It creates a space that draws people in and forces them to consider the unspoken message you're sending. By remaining silent in difficult situations, you allow your presence to communicate wisdom, restraint, and control. This silence becomes a tool of authority, subtly asserting your ability to remain unaffected by emotional triggers. When you zip your mouth and choose to remain silent, it's an act of emotional intelligence. Instead of reacting impulsively, you give yourself the time to process your feelings and the situation, allowing you to respond in a more thoughtful and constructive manner. Silence can also give others the opportunity to reflect on their own actions, thoughts, and words, forcing them to step back and reevaluate their position. There's a unique power in not filling every gap in conversation with noise. Silence creates a pause in which both parties can think, absorb, and adjust their thinking. Instead of letting the situation spiral into negativity, silence can serve as a bridge toward resolution, or at the very least a neutral ground where emotions have a chance to cool before communication continues. Remaining silent also helps you avoid unnecessary escalation. In many disputes, the cycle of one-upmanship can quickly turn into a verbal battle, each side striving to have the last word. This often results in more tension, hurt feelings, and unresolved issues. However, by choosing silence, you break that cycle. Your silence tells the other person that you are not interested in continuing a back-and-forth exchange designed to prove who is right or wrong. In doing so, you force the situation to shift. The other person may either feel compelled to reconsider their words, or may feel the need to step back and acknowledge the unspoken message of restraint you're sending. More often than not, silence also creates a space for empathy and understanding. When you choose not to immediately jump in with your perspective or counter-argument, you leave room for the other person to fully express their viewpoint. This act of listening, of being present without interruption, is a powerful form of respect. It's a way of signaling that you care more about understanding their side of the story than about proving your own point. When people feel genuinely heard, they're more likely to listen to you in return, creating a balanced and more open conversation. Silence doesn't mean you're disengaged. It means you're giving the conversation the space it needs to grow and develop naturally. Avoiding unnecessary arguments is another key benefit of choosing silence. It's easy to get caught up in the momentum of a heated exchange, especially when emotions are running high. However, there are times when saying nothing is the wisest course of action. Not every disagreement requires a response, and not every opinion needs to be challenged. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is to remain silent, not because you don't have anything to say, but because saying something might only serve to inflame the situation further. When you zip your mouth, you prevent the conversation from escalating into a pointless argument that won't lead to a productive outcome. You create a boundary that protects your mental and emotional well-being, helping you to conserve your energy for situations where your input will actually be beneficial. Choosing silence in moments of conflict also allows you to practice emotional control. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say things you don't mean, or to react in a way that doesn't serve your best interests. But by remaining quiet, you give yourself a moment to calm your emotions and avoid saying something out of anger, frustration, or stress. Emotional control is a skill that takes time to develop, but by regularly practicing silence when emotions are high, you can build this skill and improve your ability to handle challenging situations more effectively. Over time, this will help you to approach difficult conversations with a clear mind, allowing you to express your thoughts and feelings in a calm, measured way. Moreover, silence can prevent you from inadvertently causing harm to others. Words can hurt, even when we don't intend them to. In moments of heightened emotion, our words may be sharper, more cutting, or more defensive than we realize. By staying silent, you avoid the risk of saying something that could hurt someone else's feelings or damage a relationship. Silence allows you to take a step back and consider the impact of your words before they're spoken. This consideration is an important part of emotional intelligence and can help you navigate complex social situations with more grace and sensitivity. In this way, silence is not a form of avoidance. It's an intentional act of preserving relationships and fostering positive communication. Pausing for clarity is another powerful aspect of zipping your mouth. In many conversations, especially those that are emotionally charged or complex, it's easy to feel rushed to respond. However, taking a moment of silence can provide the mental clarity needed to articulate your thoughts in a clear and meaningful way. When you don't feel pressured to speak immediately, you give yourself the time to consider your response carefully. This pause allows you to collect your thoughts, organize your words, and ensure that what you say is aligned with your true intentions. In fast-paced conversations, we often prioritize speed over thoughtfulness, speaking just to keep up with the flow of dialogue. But when you take the time to pause, you create the space for deeper, more thoughtful communication. This pause also allows you to assess whether speaking is even necessary at all. Sometimes the best response is no response, and the silence can be a message in itself. By taking that moment to reflect before speaking, you avoid impulsive reactions and ensure that you don't say anything that might come across as hasty or inappropriate. Silence also promotes better understanding. When you pause, you give both yourself and the other person the opportunity to reflect on the conversation. It helps both parties process the information that's been shared and think about how best to proceed. Often in conversations where people talk over each other, valuable points get lost and misunderstandings arise. However, by embracing silence, you foster a more thoughtful exchange, one where both sides can fully process the information before responding. This leads to more meaningful conversations, where clarity and mutual understanding are prioritized over speed and superficial responses. There's a remarkable strength in silence. In a world that often values loudness and constant verbal exchange, choosing to zip your mouth when the situation calls for it is an act of control, respect and wisdom. Silence has the ability to transform interactions, prevent unnecessary conflict, and give both parties the space to think, reflect and respond more thoughtfully. Instead of contributing to the noise, you use silence as a tool for greater understanding, more effective communication, and stronger relationships. When you choose to zip your mouth, you are not just holding back words, you are actively protecting your energy. Every conversation, whether positive or negative, takes a certain amount of emotional and mental energy. Engaging in endless discussions or participating in every argument, even when you know it's futile, can drain you. It's easy to get swept up in conversations that don't align with your goals or values, leaving you feeling mentally exhausted and emotionally spent. By choosing silence, you protect your energy from being wasted on unimportant or harmful exchanges. Silence creates space where you can conserve your emotional reserves, allowing you to focus on the things that truly matter. It prevents you from being dragged into unproductive arguments, gossip or drama, which can consume your time and energy without contributing anything meaningful to your life. When you zip your mouth, you make a conscious choice to guard your emotional well-being, ensuring that you reserve your energy for interactions and situations that will nourish you, rather than drain you. Moreover, the act of remaining silent in certain situations helps you avoid engaging in conflicts that are rooted in ego or unnecessary emotional triggers. When we react impulsively, it is often a response from a place of defensiveness or pride, and these reactions do not serve us well. They can escalate situations and create friction that might have been avoidable if we had taken a step back. By remaining silent, you allow the situation to cool down, giving both parties time to gain perspective and regain control over their emotions. This emotional self-regulation allows you to protect your mental health and well-being, ensuring you're not constantly reacting to the world around you in a way that leaves you feeling drained or upset. Additionally, silence gives you the time to recharge and refocus. Constantly engaging with people and offering your opinions can sometimes exhaust your sense of self. When you take a moment to remain silent, you are not just avoiding external conflict, you are also creating the opportunity for inner peace and self-reflection. This time of quiet allows you to reconnect with yourself, gain clarity on your thoughts and emotions, and renew your mental and emotional strength. One of the remarkable things about silence is that it often allows actions to speak louder than words. We live in a world where talking is the default mode of communication, and while words are undeniably powerful, sometimes actions carry a greater weight. Choosing silence in moments where you might feel compelled to speak allows you to focus on what you do, not just what you say. Often people are looking for proof, not promises, and your actions can convey more about your character and intentions than words ever could. When you zip your mouth and let your actions do the talking, you create a more authentic form of communication. For example, rather than arguing or defending your position, you might simply show up, act with integrity, or make a positive impact in a way that speaks volumes. The way you live your life, your consistency in your actions, and the choices you make convey your values and intentions more powerfully than any speech ever could. Furthermore, by letting your actions speak for you, you also avoid the potential pitfalls of miscommunication that often accompany words. No matter how carefully we choose our words, they can still be misinterpreted. Tone, context, and delivery all play a part in how our words are received. Actions, however, often leave less room for misunderstanding. When people see you doing what you say you will do, when they witness your reliability, honesty, and commitment, they learn who you are without you having to explain yourself constantly. Choosing silence can also be a demonstration of confidence and strength. When you don't feel the need to explain yourself, defend your actions, or justify your decisions through words, you are showing that you trust your own choices and believe in the path you've taken. You are saying that you don't need the approval of others to validate your worth. This kind of quiet confidence is powerful, and it inspires others to respect you for who you are, rather than for what you say. Another powerful aspect of zipping your mouth is that it allows space for reflection. In the busyness of everyday life, it's easy to get caught up in the rush to respond, to react, to meet expectations, and to stay on top of conversations. However, many of us forget to pause and reflect on our own thoughts, feelings, and reactions. When you choose silence, you gift yourself the opportunity to process your emotions and gather your thoughts before acting. This reflective space allows you to think more deeply about the situation you are in and decide whether it's worth responding to at all. Sometimes the urgency we feel to speak is more about the pressure we place on ourselves than the actual need for communication. By embracing silence, you can disconnect from the immediate urgency and allow yourself to think critically. This doesn't just help you avoid saying things in haste, it gives you the clarity to articulate a response that is truly meaningful, rather than one driven by impulse. Reflection also helps you learn from situations. When you're constantly talking or reacting, you might miss the valuable insights that come from just observing and listening. Silence allows you to step back from the situation and gain a clearer understanding of what's happening, how you feel about it, and how you might want to approach it in the future. Through reflection, you can learn about yourself, your triggers, and your thought patterns. This self-awareness enhances your ability to navigate difficult situations with more wisdom and emotional intelligence. Moreover, reflecting in silence allows you to find solutions to problems that might seem overwhelming when you're caught in the rush of conversation. Whether it's a personal challenge or a professional dilemma, taking a step back and giving yourself time to reflect often leads to new insights, better decision-making, and a greater sense of clarity about how to move forward. Knowing when it's not your battle to fight is one of the most valuable aspects of mastering the art of silence. In every relationship, whether it's personal, professional, or social, there are moments when you could easily get involved in someone else's conflict. However, there's a certain wisdom in recognizing when it's not your place to intervene or speak up. By zipping your mouth in these moments, you show maturity, respect, and discernment. There are situations where, even if you have strong opinions or advice, stepping back and allowing the involved parties to handle their own matters is the right choice. By refraining from inserting yourself into every dispute or disagreement, you show that you respect the autonomy of others and their ability to handle their own problems. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you understand that not every situation requires your input, and sometimes people need space to resolve their issues on their own. In professional environments, particularly, there are many instances where getting involved in conflicts that don't directly concern you can do more harm than good. By staying silent and not taking sides, you maintain neutrality, protect your position, and avoid the risk of escalating tension or creating additional problems. In personal relationships, similarly, there are moments when offering unsolicited advice or trying to mediate an argument between others may only serve to add to the complexity of the situation. In these cases, silence allows you to avoid unnecessary drama and to preserve your relationships with all parties involved. Furthermore, knowing when not to speak also demonstrates emotional intelligence. It shows that you are aware of boundaries, both your own and others. Sometimes, people need to go through their own experiences and struggles in order to grow. By stepping back and not forcing your perspective on them, you give them the space they need to process things on their own terms. This act of restraint is an important component of empathy and understanding. One of the most profound effects of zipping your mouth is the way it helps create space for others to express themselves. In conversations, especially group settings or debates, it's easy for one person's voice to dominate, leaving others with little room to speak. However, when you choose silence, you allow others the opportunity to be heard. This is particularly important in discussions where every voice is valuable and people need to feel seen and understood. By staying quiet and giving others the floor, you communicate that their thoughts and feelings are important to you. It fosters an environment where everyone feels respected and encouraged to share, which can lead to more enriching and dynamic conversations. This act of generosity and communication can strengthen your relationships and create an atmosphere of mutual respect. When people feel heard, they're more likely to listen to you in return, creating a cycle of respect that benefits everyone involved. Moreover, creating space for others to speak helps foster deeper understanding. Often when we talk over each other or interrupt, we miss out on valuable insights and perspectives. Silence allows us to truly listen, absorb, and reflect on what others are saying. This not only improves the quality of the conversation, but also allows you to build stronger connections with those around you. It creates a dynamic where people are not just waiting for their turn to talk, but actively listening and engaging with each other's ideas. By recognizing the importance of silence in creating space for others, you become a better communicator and a more compassionate individual. You show that you value the opinions of others and are committed to fostering an environment of open dialogue and understanding. In a world where speaking is often seen as the default response, choosing silence can be one of the most powerful decisions you can make. It grants you the space to think, reflect, and respond with intention rather than reaction. Silence is not about shutting down or withdrawing. It's about reclaiming control, fostering deeper understanding, and nurturing healthier relationships. Whether it's in moments of conflict, self-discovery, or creativity, silence provides the clarity and calm needed to navigate the complexities of life with grace and wisdom. Embrace the power of silence and discover how it can transform the way you communicate, relate to others, and understand yourself.